Hello, everybody. She was supposed to wow you with my credentials and everything that I've accomplished in my life, but instead she just left me. So I've got that going for me, I guess. For those of you that were tuning in to hear the dulcet tones of Tom Kirkham and his radio voice, I apologize. You're stuck with me. Although, if it makes you feel any better, I have been told that I have a face for radio, so maybe that'll get me through the next 15 or 20 minutes with you. We are going to talk about a couple of different things today. Hopefully, you will find this educational and maybe learn some things about the industries and sort of how they fit together and work hand in hand. And we'll just kind of move through a few slides. It's not going to take up a ton of your time today. I do appreciate that your time is valuable, and I thank you each and every one for making a few minutes for us to visit today. So Kinsey is going to be assisting me today with the polls. I think we've got one more poll that we're going to do. This is not a traditional sales type webinar. It's mostly educational. We do have a little bit of a sales thing at the end, so you'll want to stick around for the special. And then Kinsey will be controlling the slides. So if you hear me say next slide like a very important person, that's just me asking Kinsey to go ahead and proceed to the next one. So I think we're ready to launch. Kinsey, if you're ready.
Yeah, I am ready. Let's get started.
All right. So obviously on these slides here, I'm not going to read all these bullet points for you, but I am wanting to share some experiences that we've come across and some things that we've learned in the almost 20 years that we've been around. Essentially what we're trying to do is just create an environment where we can all learn together. And so hopefully if you guys have any questions or thoughts, we'll be able to learn some things from you guys today. And hopefully if I do my job well, then you'll learn a few things from me as well. So one of the things that we run into a lot whenever we're talking to clients and prospects as we talk about the cybersecurity world and what all it entails, we find a lot of things that people maybe don't understand fully, or perhaps a better word is just that they're not educated on all the aspects of things that are going on in the world today. And so one of the things that we run into many, many times when we're talking to our current clients and even others, we have a couple of accounting firms that we take really good care of. And one of the things that they find in their continuing education courses, they go all over the US and they're learning how to be better accountants. They'll come back and they'll have had a presentation from a cybersecurity insurance company, and they want us to evaluate that with them and go over it and look at it. And so what I'm going to do on this slide and the next slide a little bit is just kind of talk about some of the things that we have seen in these different policies, what they cover, what they don't cover, and also more importantly, perhaps what it is that you have to do as the person buying insurance to certify that you qualify for the policy that these different companies are selling. I think Tom actually did join us wearing his face mask there. It's kind of frightening, Tom. Kinsey, if you want to go ahead and punch us over to the next slide. So everybody's familiar with insurance. We all have insurance of one type or another. Some of us probably have a lot of experience dealing with insurance companies. And so insurance companies, while they're great and they protect us to a large degree, they aren't always the easiest people to work with. So essentially what happens is the biggest part of the cybersecurity insurance policy is, you have to self-certify that you meet the conditions and criteria that they require in order to cover your organization. So think about that for just a second. You are self-certifying that you are, in fact, qualifying for the policy that they want to sell you. Now, if any of us have purchased life insurance policies or even some health insurance policies over the year, auto, home, all of that, we know that the insurance companies like to be really involved. They want to know what kind of car it is, or have you ever smoked, or do you have any health issues, so on and so forth. And they'll go to great lengths to discover this information about us or the items that we're trying to protect. And so as we do that, and then we look at the cyber insurance policies, we're like, well, why do I have to self-certify on this? And the biggest reason, and we've talked to a number of different companies that provide cyber insurance, and some are much more further along in this endeavor than others. But what we found is that a lot of the insurance companies are selling cyber insurance because it's really sexy right now. It's one of those things that it's like the go-to market. Everybody wants to get into cyber insurance and these insurance companies because they can sell these policies And then, they're making all this money off the premiums, but they just don't understand it. And so because they don't understand it, that's why we self-certify on these things. And so what these policies do provide is if you self-certify and everything is correct and you are truly a viable candidate for their policy and you have a cyber event, they are going to help you with some of that. Some of the things that they're going to do is they're going to help with remediation costs because there's going to be time and effort and energy by some sort of security specialist or at least an IT staff to remediate whenever these problems happen. And that's going to cost money. Sometimes some of the policies will even go so far as to provide coverages for a data breach so that if people that you take care of, your customers or your employees, because of the breach are in some way impacted personally, they'll allow money for taking care of those issues. Sometimes that includes things like paying for our next thing that we're going to talk about, identity protection and how to monitor a credit and make sure that people aren't being exposed to these different problems and these different situations that pop up due to a data breach. And so it's really important to have a good understanding of what each cyber policy covers because they are all different. And because of those differences, we have to be cognizant of and really look and read the fine print as we're moving forward with these, because it is important that we understand what is and is not covered, and the is not may be the most important piece of that. So what you're going to find as you read these policies, if you compare multiple companies, you're typically going to find different remediation levels. Some of them may give you $1,000 per endpoint, and which means every computer to remediate because they know that it's going to take a lot of money to fix these issues that pop up. Some of them have protection for people that are impacted by a breach. Some of them don't. And so it's really important to have a really good basic understanding of what it is you want to do and what you're trying to accomplish whenever you look at these policies and you're comparing apples and apples and apples and oranges. And then you got to watch out because every once in a while somebody's going to throw a grapefruit in there. And the grapefruits are the ones that you got to be really careful of. In case some of you are wondering, I'm not a big fan of grapefruits, full disclosure. So Kenzie, I think we're ready to go to the next slide. So identity protection, I assume most of you have heard of these programs. Obviously, there's one called LifeLock, which was very famous and very heavily marketed, I would say 10, 15 years ago, perhaps even longer than that. And the gentleman who started the company actually published his social security number on buses in, I believe it was New York City, because he was so confident in what he was selling that he felt like he could throw his social security number out there and be absolutely 100% confident in it. He doesn't do that anymore because he actually had an identity breach, and some of it was caught and some of it was not. And so it's one of those things where there are a lot of companies going around saying, hey, we're going to sell you identity protection. So again, it's buyer beware. It's one of those markets that we have to be thinking about. We have to understand what it is that we're buying because they are not all created equal. So if you've got cybersecurity insurance on one hand, and then you've got your identity protection on the other, that's a fantastic combination of two things that can really protect an organization, protect individuals. So just keep in mind that these are comparable, compatible pieces would be the better word, that when you fit them together, they make a part of the whole picture, a part of the whole that you're trying to accomplish. The thing with identity protection is a lot of times when you get the notification, it's because somebody's already done something. So it's shutting the barn door after the horse has already dashed out. So while it's good, and these different credit agencies and these different identity protection agencies are going to help protect you and help put your life back together, we also have to be cognizant of they don't kick in until something's happened. And so, cybersecurity is for, insurance is for, hey, we had an event, we have to remediate, we have to, pay out money to our clients, our customers, we have to do these things. And then identity protection also fills in that gap after an event happens. And so all these things are very reactive. And while none of them are bad, and they're all great tools and should be a part of your arsenal, especially if it's something that you can find that is beneficial and affordable, just make sure that you understand where it fits into the scheme. We're making a cybersecurity picture, and these pieces are for things that have happened after. So if we can move forward to the next slide. I just like saying that. Can we please move to the next slide? So what we want to do and what we emphasize is, yes, get cybersecurity insurance. Do you need it? It's hugely beneficial. Yes, get identity protection. But keep in mind, let's try to prevent these things from ever being needed. You know, my house got hit by lightning a few years ago and took out three or four, $5,000 worth of stuff. Well, then that event happened. So then I'm paying the deductible to get my money from the insurance company. And so we have to be aware that, you know, while cyber insurance has its place, let's try to prevent these things from happening. So what we focus our efforts and our energy on is prevention, defense, and detection. We also respond when needed, because no product, no software, no human being is 100% going to be able to 100% protect you or an organization. And if they tell you that they can, then they're lying to you. I'm going to tell you today that there are two types of people in the world: people that have had a cyber event of one type or another, or been involved in directly or indirectly a cyber event, or the other people are those who will. Now, this may be a credit card breach. This could be Equifax being breached. Could be LinkedIn being breached. LinkedIn's been breached a couple of times. TeamViewer's been breached. A lot of these tools and a lot of these softwares and these social media groups, social marketing groups that we are members of, they've had issues in the past. And so as they strive to increase their security, we still have to be cognizant of the fact that we have been impacted either directly or indirectly by a cyber event, because whatever information was stolen from these groups that we provided them is out there. It's for sale. It's somewhere on the dark web. Somebody is willing to pay money for it because they're trying to put a bunch of pieces together about Matt or Kinsey or anyone else. And what they're doing is they're going through and they're saying, all right, so we know this about Kinsey. Now let's find out this about Kinsey. And once they get enough pieces assembled, then they can pretend to be Kinsey, and they're going to try and do her harm one way or another. Could be opening credit cards under her name, could be opening a home mortgage. Who knows what they're going to do. But we have to assume that those things can and will happen. And so what we have to do is prevent them from happening. And we do that with a couple of different tools, but I want everybody to kind of take just a second. And this line at the very bottom of this slide says, you're cyber secure or you're not. Consider that. You either are or you are not. There is no halfway measure. There is no, well, I've got antivirus, that should be good enough, or I've got insurance, that should be good enough, or I've got ID protection, that should be good enough. You're either secure or you aren't. There is no middle ground. And it's one of those things that we talk about a lot. And as an organization, whether you're a water system or a state association or a small mom and pop business in any town in America or anywhere in the world for that matter, they're not targeting you specifically. They just want you or someone in your organization to make one mistake, click one link, open one attachment, one time, and then they've got you. And so depending on the severity of the got you, you know, you're going to lose the trust of the people that you're supposed to be taking care of or providing a service to. You're going to lose productivity, potentially money, because you're either not going to know who owes you money or what you owe. And in some instances, because of some of the new security standards that are coming out, you know, at the national federal government level, you could lose eligibility for some programs that are out there to aid and assist small businesses or water systems or state associations. So we just have to be aware. We have to be cognizant. We have to think about it on a daily basis. And so as we move forward in our presentation here, we're going to talk a little bit about what we do. We're going to try to tie that in a little bit with what some of you guys may be doing now. And hopefully we can kind of connect all these dots for you. All right. So what cyber protection does. I'm sure everyone has heard or read dozens, if not hundreds of articles on ransomware. So ransomware is probably by far the biggest fear that we talk about that people have on a week in, week out basis. Everybody knows ransomware is terrible. Somebody did something, went to a website, clicked a link, opened an attachment, did something, and now the files on this machine are encrypted. We see that dreaded pop-up box that says, hey, we'll decrypt your files. All you have to do is send us X number of dollars worth of Bitcoin, and we'll send you the decryption key. And the real kicker is we're going to help you decrypt your files. What they don't tell you is that every time something is encrypted and decrypted using these types of tools, almost without exception, you're going to lose some of your data. There's going to be a percentage that's just going to be corrupted beyond a point where you can decrypt it and use it. And so we have to think about, all right, so can we afford to lose some of our data? If so, what data can we afford to lose? And as we think about that, in most instances, most organizations, it's really difficult to tell what you can and cannot live without. And then more importantly, you have no control over what you do or do not get back. So ransomware is a really nasty thing that's been out there for a very long time. It's been well documented, but they're taking it to the next level. They want two levers on you now. They don't want you just to pay to get your information decrypted. Now they are also putting additional payloads in these ransomware attacks. And so what these new payloads are doing is they're stealing the data that's on your network and encrypting it. So now you say, well, you know what? I've got a backup. I'm going to restore from my backup. I can afford to be down for 2 weeks or a week or however long it might take for us to reconstitute our office. They're like, all right, so you're not going to pay for that. No big deal. Will you pay to keep us from selling your customers information, personally identifiable information on the dark web? So I won't, you're not going to pay us to decrypt. Are you going to, now we're going to hold your data hostage. Are you going to pay us to not publish this? And so then you have a really tricky circumstance where, well, do I want to have to answer to the local TV news station or newspaper? Do I want to become a national story where I'm out front and center? My name is there with my picture saying, hey, you know, we just didn't want to pay to protect the data of those people that have entrusted us or that we work with or that we provide a service to. And so it's from a PR standpoint, from a management standpoint, it's a very nasty situation to be put in. And also, like, once you lose that client trust or that customer trust, man, that's a nasty, hard road to hoe to get back to normal. And it's not always possible to get there. And sometimes when, you know, people lose faith in management, management gets changed. I mean, that's just the reality of the world that we live in. We would be in the exact same position if we were compromised. People would lose faith in us, and they should. And so what we want you guys to think about is think about this as a complete package. Cyber insurance has absolutely got a place in everyone's world. Identity protection absolutely should be something that everyone should consider. But are you truly, truly cyber secure and preventing ransomware? And then if we can go to the next slide, we're going to talk about a couple of things here. And I think we've got just a couple more slides, and I promise I'll shut up. But the most important thing is everybody's really familiar with physical controls. Like, we have fences, we have locks on our doors, we have video surveillance where needed or required. And those things absolutely are important. We don't want people breaking into our offices or into our facilities and potentially doing harm. So now we have to look at administrative controls. And so things on the administrative side of things are, well, do I have an antivirus? Is that good enough? Or do I have an endpoint detect and respond system that actually can protect me on what's called 0 day, the day that a virus is released into the world? Do I have that protection immediately, or do I have to wait for a human being somewhere to find something in order to protect me? Using things like biometric scanners to unlock phones or to unlock computers. These are all part of administrative controls, and they're things that as administrators, we have to think about and we have to take into consideration. Is the door locked? Yes or no? Do I have video surveillance? Yes or no? Do I have an appropriate level of security protection? Yes or no? And then, of course, the last piece of this is from a technical side. And this part of this may be the most important thing. We want to help you craft good policies and good procedures that you can provide every employee in your organization, whether they work on a computer in your office or not. Maybe they don't. Maybe they just do things out in the field. But they probably have a computer at home where they at least have a cell phone. And so these policies and procedures that we can help you craft in place are critical to maintaining the infrastructure. And it's really important that you understand and your people understand why these are so important. Some people, I still see people to this day who don't have locks on their cell phones. Well, why is that a big deal? Well, we keep a lot of information on our cell phones. It's really important that we protect that. We have to protect our privacy. We have to protect our organization. And then each organization is responsible for protecting their employees and the people whom they serve. The other thing that we like to talk about here is continuous continuity or continuous education. And so what we want to talk about is, are we training on a regular basis? Once a year training, while it's great and has a place, is not enough. There are new threats coming out at literally every single day. Think about that. We live in a world of, 8 billion people, and there are new threats being developed to target us every day. Right now, we're seeing a lot of COVID-19 based threats where there are fake websites with slight misspellings. They're sending out a lot of phishing attack emails trying to get people to click to see what the new alert in your county is. And so we have to continually train our minds and our people's minds to watch out for those types of things. And Kenzie, you can flip over to the next slide now if you'd like. So what we want to talk about, of course, we've already talked about this continuing training, but what we do is we send out a weekly training. This weekly training is all about new and current threats. These are very current. Usually if something happens, you're going to hear about it or read about it the next week. We want everybody to keep this stuff top of mind every single day, not just at work, but at home. Don't click things that you're not sure about. If you're not sure, there's probably a reason. These things are being crafted so well, they're trying to trick us every single day. But we have to be responsible, we have to take responsibility, and we have to be aware. And awareness is the biggest key. If you're not aware of these threats and these potential things that are out there, then you're much more susceptible, you're much more likely to make a mistake. The backup and disaster recovery is pretty basic, but it's one of those things where we find a lot of people are backing up on a physical drive and taking it home. Well, if that gets lost or stolen, or if it's plugged in whenever it starts encrypting, it'll encrypt that drive as well. So now your backup is also encrypted. So what you need to think about is a cyber secure backup that cannot be encrypted. And then from a disaster recovery standpoint, think about continuity. Everybody has to have business continuity plans now. So if the building burns or if there's a tornado or a flood, man, can we get this office back up and running to continue to provide the needed services? Well, with the disaster recovery plan and a good cyber secure backup, you can, because that data is protected and it can be pushed wherever it needs to be pushed. So you can work from a public library, you could work from home, a lot of different options there. And the last but not least, the managed EDR. Just one last thing about it is the reason that it protects things on 0 day or the day that these viruses come out is it doesn't care about coding. All it's looking at is this potentially going to do harm to the computer? Somebody clicks something, it analyzes it immediately and says, could this potentially harm the computer? Yes or no. If it's yes, it blocks it before it executes. If it's not going to harm the computer, then it lets it run. And a great thing about these services, they're backed up with human beings in a 24/7 security operations center. And that's a really fancy term for cybersecurity experts who are literally sitting in a room analyzing these threats every single day as they come in. Your computer gets, you get an email, you click something you shouldn't have clicked, the software kills it, you get a notification, we get a notification, and the security operations center gets a notification. And then we all evaluate that threat together and we figure out, all right, is this legit? Is it not legit? Like, is it truly a serious threat? And then we get to make these decisions collectively. And so what we do is we combine multiple layers, multiple different tools to make these decisions in concert with these security operations centers that some of these guys are absolutely brilliant. And what we try to do is just make good decisions for each individual organization that we work with. And it's not one of those things that we're ever going to be done because these threats continue to change day to day. So we have to be aware of it. We have to be able and ready and willing to respond. And then we can go to the next slide. So everybody that is on this call is going to get an email probably within the next 5 to 10 minutes. And what this email is going to have is, it's pretty basic, but it's going to have a link in there where you can sign up for this free technical network assessment. What this network entails, just really quickly, really briefly, and then hopefully we'll have some questions that we can answer. But what it entails is initially about a 30-minute conversation. It's a non-technical network review where we talk about what do you have on your network. How many laptops, how many computers? Do you have a server? What kind of security steps do you have in place now? What information do you have that is critical to your organization or has to be protected? And we do all that in a 30-minute conversation. We fill out this little form and it gets us started. Then what we do is for the technical side, we'll schedule a 5 to 10-minute window where with somebody's help, we're able to actually run a piece of software on a network, and it creates an executive summary for us. And then we can go back and we'll have our final conversation, which usually is about another 30 to 45 minutes. So altogether, we're investing an hour in each other, but we're taking this hour, and at the end, in that last 30 to 45 minutes, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the technical assessment. You'll have a copy, but more importantly, it's going to highlight, all right, these are threats that are on your network, or these are openings on your network that are vulnerable. These are high threats. These are medium level threats. These are low level threats. And what we know in every network is you have to assume that there's going to be something that's not right. We've never found a network that's 100% locked down, and we never will. But what we do is we evaluate the risk and we say, all right, so this has to be this way because of XYZ computer program has to have this to run. Is that an acceptable risk? And then we document it, and then we decide, all right, so what can we do to protect the network as best we can, even knowing that this vulnerability exists on it? And so we'll take that conversation, we'll turn it around, and you'll get some really great information, and we'll be able to tie it in and show you some things that we can do to help protect you guys as you move forward. But more importantly, if nothing else, it's a good educational piece, because then you'll have a better understanding of what vulnerabilities exist on your network. You can document them, and you can make sure that it's an acceptable level, because we all have to accept some levels of risk. There's no way that we can be 100% cyber secure all the time. And so we want to work together with everybody, and we hope that we hear from all of you guys and have an opportunity to do this assessment with you. Typically, we do charge $495 for this, but we're going to go ahead and, as long as you click on that link within the next 14 days, we're going to go ahead and do that for free. And if you click on it within the next hour, you might get another something. We'll just leave that open and mysterious for Kinsey to figure out, because she loves doing that kind of stuff. Right, Kinsey?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that's pretty much the presentation today. I hope that I said something or pointed out some things or gave you guys some thoughts, some things to think about. I think we've got one more. Do we have one more poll?
Oh, yes, we do. Let me go ahead and launch it really fast. So we are asking if you have a better understanding of the difference between cyber insurance and cybersecurity. Give everybody a little bit of time to vote.
And hopefully you do. Otherwise, I did a poor job. But if I did, Kinsey will certainly tell me about that later. She's
yeah.
providing feedback. It's just almost never positive. I think that's just how she rolls.
Oh yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end this poll. Let's see, and I'm gonna share the results. It looks like you did pretty good, Matt.
Well, I feel good about that. Hopefully, it was truly helpful.
Yes.
Does anybody have any questions before we get off here? I know that we try to keep these to the 20 to 30-minute range, and we're bumping 2:30 now. But any questions that you guys have, we're happy to answer them now. Or if you want, you can always email that email address there, sales@irontechsecurity.com. We'll be happy to respond to any and every email, any and every question. And we hopefully will be able to give you a piece of information that maybe you just didn't know.
Alrighty. Next week we'll be going over why cybersecurity is not your IT guy's responsibility. So make sure to register whenever I do send those emails out. We are looking forward to it. We hope you can join us next week.
Thanks, guys. I hope this was helpful to everyone.
Thank you.